Hey Space Watchers, and welcome back. It's the end of day number 1 here in Paris at the World Space Business Week. In a new location, but we adapted very fast to this new location. As you can see, we just found a nice spot here, trying to escape from all these drinking parties that you don't want to see here at the moment. So because we do here serious reporting of what happened today. Laura, how was your day? Tell us a bit.
Well, as it's my first ever time at World Space Business Week, honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. We had so many fascinating panels, an amazing breadth of guests. And I have to say, I had a comment from one attendee who said, yes, it's a new venue, but same kind of place. They've got hotel rooms and toilets and lobbies and bars. But a lovely place to be.
Thanks God you didn't say the same people. Yeah, but I heard you. Okay. Anything else? First impressions.
My first impressions, I can really see this as a great collaborative space for generating new ideas, for actually getting things done. But it's not my highlight. I want to hear, Torsten, about your highlight for the day, because I'm sure you've got much better information from me, because I want to focus more on a couple of points afterwards. So what was the highlight for you?
Highlights. I'm always impressed by the first panels that are delivered here, because they're setting the stage of where the space industry in Europe, globally, but primarily in Europe is. And I'm happy that you said that is a place to get things done.
Yeah.
We have a number of space events worldwide, as we all know, but that is the one you have to be in Europe. So, again, that leads me to my first comment here. The opening with Pacôme Revillon, the CEO of NovaSpace, who talked about the market at the moment here, as a space market that we see worldwide. He presented some numbers of their very well done research, and he talked, and that was something that I evaluated with him in an interview thereafter, about serenity. Serenity as a driver for the space sector, and that's what we see. And he put that also into numbers, because over 50 countries worldwide having military space programs, and that drives the industry, if we like it or not. That is a complete change of attitude than we had it over the last decade. I would say. You have done it at Airbus, so I said it. Doing military in a normal space environment was something not so well seen. Even Josef Aschbacher, in an interview or on stage, mentioned that before. So the move, and when you have seen our reporting over the last year, I would say, we all very often talk about how ISAR is moving towards a defense, a security focused space. So he mentioned that ISAR has already over 100 projects in that realm. So that's not something new, but the reality is, over the last years, when you talk with ISAR about defense, you are not longer part of on the discussion at the table. So that changed completely. The focus of ISAR, of course, is this year, to be not surprised, the ISAR Ministerial in 2 months in Bremen, and of course already the next EU MFF, the Multi-Finance Framework, includes space and the funding for space and the huge space programs of the EU. And we're talking here about Galileo, we're talking about the Earth observation system Copernicus and the potentially coming ERS. We're talking about LEO PNT as a successor or as a complement to Galileo. And of course, we talk about Aerospace. Okay, that's from Aschbacher. Then I had the pleasure to be at a press conference of ISAR Aerospace, and they talked about their first launch, and that those of us that have followed this launch, which was exploded after 50 meters of ground, and they talked what happened to that, and it was interesting. They really get into the details. So it was an intentional opening of a valve in parallel that to losing altitude control due to the low speed that they gained while ramping up. So, and that's a bad thing why it is still a success. The goal was to leave the pad and to test out their own flight termination system. What we obviously have seen happened perfectly because it was a big fireball in the sea. So that's the other definition of a flight termination system. But the question is, how fast will they be back on the launch pad? Pretty fast. They're working on it. They're doing their test. They're going then to the regulator in Norway, in Andoya, to get the license and then to fly it, because they have plans for the next years to ramp up their flight cadence to an interesting level, because the demand in Europe is so high for launch, for sovereign European launch, that no one can really deliver. So I also asked them in the press conference about the pricing of the rocket, and they said price is not an issue anymore. So it's not the highest the highest.
Don't ask me English. I lived in France too long, so yeah. I can't help you there, Torsten.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, so highest denominator.
Yes, that's one priority for the to choose a rocket. So the availability is key. Okay, that were my highlights of the day. Now yours. So
and you know what, Torsten? It's like you've literally read my mind to say, how can I lead into what Laura wants to highlight in the most perfect way? So everything you've just discussed, there's 2 points I took away from today. I attended the GCC panel for strategy, so the Gulf Cooperation Council.
The Middle Eastern countries.
Well, I don't give a crap, because honestly, when you look at the planet, there's no boundaries on an Earth that I look at. But what I did appreciate was their strategy, their way of working. The phrase that stood out for me was red tape to red carpet. How do we enable the technologies and capabilities in a rapid way that gets an output for a user? Okay. So it was a fascinating panel, and I was very happy to hear this kind of approach, because you get that. You get that in Europe, you get it in the US, but there are exceptions. So that was really fascinating. And then also, it kind of ties in nicely to what we're doing on Wednesday, or what I'm doing with the Space Innovation Summit. So
what are you doing there? Tell us.
Well, I would bring on my partner in crime, Thomas Tanguy, who is working for NovaSpace, who is running this panel, but it's essentially saying, what is our ecosystem and how do we have that end-to-end value chain learning, not failures, because what you just talked about from ISAR, it's not a failure, it's about learning, growing, iterating, building the next step. So the Space Innovation Summit on Wednesday is exactly shaped to look at that. How do we bring learning from established players, from what's happened before, and make that accessible to the next generation, to the next person that's coming in, to the next startup, to those people in the ecosystem. So again, I see it as this is a conference for getting things done, but to add value, not just for the sake of it, for a technology. Absolutely. So yeah, no, it was a fascinating day. My quote of the day was from the first panel, from the investment panel, when someone said you have to fall in love with revenue, not with the PowerPoint slides, not with the predictions, yes, with the revenue. And I think that breaks it down, that it's time that the fantasy gets out of this market. I mean, we're all here in this market because space is so cool, and what we can do and what parts of the solar system we can explore, but space is business. Yeah. And it follows the same rules as any other business. And I think that's a good closure of the day. It's going to be a great week. So come join us again. Hopefully it won't have rained, and we're in a lovely area. We'll find something nice to bring you for tomorrow.
So tomorrow morning, Yvette and I will do our morning show from the Space Defense and Security Summit. So the SDSS, the security thing, we will report from there during the day, and we will have you here at the World Space Business Week to keep an eye open and to have wonderful conversations and great new inputs. And I think that closes day number 1. Thank you very much for your interest and your attention. And with that, Space Watch out.